In this section, let's practice with more arcs and angle relationships. So remember that those 4 equations, and really all we know is an angle either has its vertex at the center, inside the circle, formed by 2 chords, on the circle, or outside the circle. Remember, this is all really about where the vertex lies. Okay, so first problem, let's put x here, y here, and 150 degrees here. So what would I be able to solve for first, x or y? Based on the information given, I can only solve for y, and hopefully you are thinking that this is a diameter, so each side is 180. So I would take 180 minus 150 to get y. And that would be 30 degrees as the arc measurement. Go ahead and put it in the picture. You never know when it's going to help you with something else. We'll see that a lot today. And then x is this angle with its vertex at the center. So the general equation we've asked you to memorize is angle equals arc. And just like practicing with word problems, if you'll write out the equation, even if it's just general symbols, and fill in everything underneath, I think it will help you a lot. So the angle in this picture is literally labeled as x. If this said x plus 5, I would write x plus 5. But the angle here says x, and the arc is 30 degrees. And you just solved for x as well. Okay, don't forget this. A segment that joins 2 points on a circle is called a chord. So I'm drawing 2 chords. We'll put 60 degrees here, x here and y there, and also 234 degrees for this piece. So x and y are both angles with their vertex inside the circle, right? Inside the circle formed by 2 chords. So the overall equation we've asked you to memorize is that the angle equals arc plus arc over 2. Which one can I solve for right now with the information that's given to me in the picture? X or Y? Well, you should be thinking from what we learned yesterday that if we came out, Y would be related to this angle and its vertical angle arc. Okay, so Y would be related to both of those arcs, the 60 and the 234. Okay, and I just shaded that in to go with the last notes. So if we were going to fill that in, then we would be saying the angle would be y equals one of the arcs is 234 plus the other arc, its vertical angle arc that it would hit would be 60 all over 2. And that would give us y equals 147 degrees. Go ahead and calculate that. Make sure you do the order of operations correctly and that makes sense to you. Again, we want to stay in that habit of always putting it in the picture. Now, if I asked you to solve for x, I'm hoping maybe you would see an old way to do that. Don't forget, old things are still in play, even though we've taught you something new. You still have straight angles. The angles add up to 180. The angles inside of a triangle add up to 180. All of those things are true. So I'm hoping that you might see this straight angle right there. Okay, and so to find x, you could be doing x equals 180 minus 147 for the straight angle to get 33 degrees. Okay, and we have now solved for x and y. All right, 2 new pictures. For this one, let's go with 32 degrees here, x here for that arc, and 120 degrees here. So again, this angle, the only angle in the picture, has its vertex where? That vertex is outside the circle. So the equation we want you to have memorized is that the angle equals big arc minus small arc all over 2. And the order matters now since we are subtracting, right? So what is in the angle spot? 32 is in the angle spot. So don't just always write X. Like literally fill these in underneath like we do when we do word problems. The big arc is 120. Sorry about that. The big arc is 120 minus the small arc of X all over 2. And then how do we solve all proportions? Fractions equaling fractions, proportions, right? We put them over 1 and we cross multiply. So 1 times this quantity is going to be 120 minus X, and 2 times 32 would give us 64. Don't care what order you put them in. 1 times 120 minus X is that. But I was just thinking ahead that if I now add X to both sides, I'd have a positive X on the left, like most students like. And 120 minus 64 would give us 56 degrees. Okay, last of the 4 pictures here that are drawn. Let's put that, get those markings in there, give you 110 degrees there and X here. Okay, so once again, what kind of angle are we looking at? This angle has a vertex on the circle. So the overall equation is angle equals the arc it intersects over 2. So please notice all these equations have been over 2, except the first one, a central angle, the angle equals the arc. All of the others, though, are over 2. Okay. We need to find some measurements here. So because of the markings, this would be 110 degrees as well. And then since these 3 arcs add up to the whole circle, which is 360, I would do 360 minus 110 and 110 again. So minus 220, which would give me 140 degrees. All right, we're ready to fill in then. The angle in the picture is labeled X. The arc it hits is 140 degrees over 2. And so X would be 70 degrees. All right, and then this last part, this is really, really fun, okay? This is just you taking a puzzle and breaking it apart into different pieces and doing one piece at a time. I highly suggest you using lots of colors. I'm going to take advantage of all the colors that I possibly can to try to highlight it for you. If you can use highlighters, colored pencils, anything, I highly encourage that. Okay, and draw as much in the picture as you can, write as much work and take as many notes as you can to help you out so that it makes complete sense to you. Okay, do what works for you. So here's the first thing. The first thing to do is solve for all the arcs. So I would just pay attention here for a second and not write this because I'm probably going to erase it. Okay, so finding all the arcs first, and my way of doing that is going to be by looking at a diameter. First of all, how many arcs are in this picture? To me, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That gets me back to where I started. Okay, so for those 5 arcs, what I want to focus on is looking for a diameter. So either they're going to give me information and I'll use that to find all the arcs, or I'm going to use the information in the picture to find the arcs. So what I'm noticing is the following. If I focus right now on this diameter, that's where I'm going to go. The diameter cuts the circle into half, right? So on this top half, notice I have only 2 arcs. They have to add to 180. So 180 minus this 130 tells me that this piece right here is 50, and I'll write that in a minute. Okay, go to the bottom. There are 3 arcs down here. They have to add to 180. 2 of them are labeled. One's 40, one's 60. That adds to 100. 180 minus 100 is 80 for that piece right there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and erase both of those, and we'll fill in what we just found then. Okay, so again, following and looking at that diameter is the reason that I knew the top half being 180 minus 130 gives me this arc is 50 degrees. Down here, 180 minus the 40 and the 60 gives me 80 degrees here. All right, now that you know all of the arcs, once that has been established, I just want you to take different colors and write out any angle that you see. So like highlight any angle. I would start with your lightest color and get a little bit darker because you'll be drawing over each other. You'll catch on very quickly. So even though it looks like a complicated picture, I want you to just focus on one thing at a time. Also, don't think that you have to or necessarily can solve these in order. We'll do the best we can, but if we get stuck solving these in order, we'll just move on and come back to it at a later point. Okay, so for instance, if I want to say I'm going to solve angle 1, here's angle 1. If you highlight the walls that make angle 1 in orange, that should be your picture. Now do your best to try to focus on getting rid of, in your mind, everything else. Pretend nothing else is there. All you're doing is just focusing on that one angle. Okay? Ask yourself, what kind of angle is it that we just did? It's an angle with its vertex at the center. And therefore, angle 1, the angle equals the arc. So the arc from orange to orange, that's the key, that's why I also like to use the colors, is 60 degrees. Immediately once you solve it and box it, go put it in your picture. Put 60 degrees in there. You never know when it's going to help you solve for something later. Okay, new color, new angle. I'm looking for angle 2. So first of all, do you know how to highlight that? If this is the angle, then the walls that create that angle would be this one and this one. All right, ask yourself what kind of angle that is. It is an angle with its vertex right there. So that's on the circle. If you know the general equation is angle equals arc over 2, well, think about the arc this hits. Make sure you go completely from blue to blue. It's very easy if you're not using colors to just see one of those numbers and say, oh, it's 80 over 2. But look, it's from blue to blue. It's got to be 80 plus 40. So 120 over 2 for a total angle 2 of 60 degrees. Again, go put it in the picture and keep moving. Number 3. Here's angle 3. Can you highlight it? So those walls would be there and there. This is an angle with its vertex right here. So outside the circle, outside, remember, has to do with a bigger arc and a smaller arc. So angle equals big arc minus small arc over 2. All right, so here's the big arc. You've got to go from green to green. That whole big arc, 60 plus 50, 110. Minus the smaller arc, make sure you go green to green, 40 all over 2. So angle 3 is 35 degrees. All right, here's angle 4. Sorry, I need to go back to 3 and put in 35 degrees. Okay. All right, angle 4, right here. So notice, you should notice that this vertex of angle 4 right off the bat is inside the circle, and inside is supposed to be formed by 2 chords. So the question is, this angle, these 2 walls, we want to make sure they're chords. Remember, chords have to go across the entire circle. So does that go across the entire circle? It does. And does this one go across the entire circle? It does. In fact, it's called the diameter, right? It's a specific chord. So for chord angles with the vertex inside the circle, we know we're supposed to do angle plus angle, angle equals arc plus arc divided by 2. So this angle would be, if you go out to the arc that's going to hit from pink to pink, would be 60. And then you always go to its vertical angle, right, which would be across from it. And if you do that arc, out pink to pink would be 130 divided by 2. So angle 4 is 95 degrees. All right, let's go put it in the picture. And let's stop and just do some other puzzle pieces, right? There's lots of different questions I could ask you here. What if I asked you for this angle, or this one, or this one, or this one, or this one? Let's just throw all those in there. I could ask you several more questions in this picture that aren't even labeled. Well, these 2 are vertical angles, so this is 95 degrees. And then these 2 angles, right? These 2 would be equal to each other because they're vertical as well. Couldn't I just do the straight angle, right? Those are a straight angle. So if I did 180 minus 95, wouldn't each of these be 85 degrees? Okay, now I'm just throwing a what if in there. What if I now asked you, let's find this angle, right? What if I just called this angle 8? Well, I can't do new stuff because this would be an angle with its vertex on the circle. But notice, this doesn't extend out all the way. And I can't just guess how much of the arc that would be. So that means go with old stuff. Well, if I'm going with old stuff, guys, isn't there a triangle right here? Triangles, the 3 angles still add to 180. That doesn't change. So I could do 180 minus the 85 and the 60 to get angle 8. Okay, and I was just making that up. So I'll get rid of that and we'll keep going. Number 5. So angle 5, sitting right here. Can you highlight it? So the walls that would be going around angle 5 would be this one and this one. If I ask you to do old stuff, I hope you notice right here, this is a triangle. I could do 180 minus the 95 and the 60 and get 5. So that's a backup plan, right? Don't ever just skip this stuff. That's a backup plan if something new isn't working for you. Now, more than likely, most of you probably wouldn't have filled those in if I hadn't guided you into it, and that's fine. So angle 5, let's just go ahead and go with new material. This is an angle with its vertex on the circle, and it's supposed to be angle equals arc over 2. So the arc from blue to blue is 50 over 2 would tell us that angle 5 equals 25 degrees. Okay, go ahead and put it in the picture. All right, next, angle 6. So here's angle 6. And if you highlight angle 6, right, the walls that go around it, it would be this wall as well as this wall, which I'm going to stay on the outside so you can still see the color a little bit of both. Okay, so this is an angle with its vertex on the circle. So once again, its angle equals arc over 2. So the arc that's inside the red right? It always has to do with the arc of the circle. The arc that's completely inside the red is 130 degrees over 2, and therefore angle 6 is going to be 65 degrees. All right, put that in the circle, or in the picture, I should say. And then yours has been fixed, I believe, in your notes. So please make this number 7 have 2 marks, because we were not trying to say that angle 6 and angle 7 were equal in any means. Okay, so put the 2 marks. Realize that that had to be so they're marked differently. So for angle 7, if I ask you to do an old way, I'm hoping you would notice this straight angle, right? And there's 3 angles here making up the straight angle. So you could take 180, subtract the 65 and 60 and get angle 7. That would work. That'd be a good backup plan. However, doing it with new stuff for practice, angle 7, if you highlight it, would be this wall and this wall. And the arc that is inside those 2 walls, right, if you go for that whole thing, the arc that's in there is the 50 and the 60, that whole arc. So you've got to add those together. So 50 plus 60 is 110. So this would be 110 divided by 2. So angle 7 would equal 55 degrees. Okay, right there. So take these as the puzzles, the fun game that they are. Do one little piece at a time. Again, if you want to remember, now that you've gone through the whole thing, what the steps are, find your arcs first. So find the outer arcs first by either finding a diameter and using the information in the picture, or if they give you information, like they give you an angle, they give you an arc, start writing those things in. If they give you an angle, work one of these equations backwards to find the arc. Okay, keep practicing with that. The stuff will continue on, and we'll add some more algebra to it later. Good luck.